So this is like all those books that start with the discovery of a manuscript in an attic. It's that kind of frame, right? This is part of Mesopotamian culture. And it's one of two things I'm going to talk about in the last 10 minutes or so of my talk that are more interpretive. So there is this notion that rulers should establish their name, their fame, by setting up inscriptions, monuments. On the left, you see this famous victory stele of Naram-Sin, which is now in the Louvre. That dates to about 2300, give or take. And to the right, a Neo-Assyrian monument, 1500 or so years later. We have a number of these things. It goes back to this thing that Gilgamesh said to, Enkidu said to Gilgamesh, you need to establish your fame and set up a stele. And the word for stele in Sumerian is na-dua, literally planted stone. And this is a funny kind of a D. I didn't expect to talk about Sumerian philology today, but I sort of am anyway. It's a funny D that probably has a dr. The word for the tablet that you take out of the walls of Uruk is a naru. It's the same word loaned into Akkadian. So from stele to tablet, monumental account, king's exploits, Gilgamesh's exploits. There's a continuity there. There's an interrelationship between what Gilgamesh the king does and what the mortal kings do. So mortal kings, in some ways, model their behavior on the kinds of activity that are associated with the written traditions of Gilgamesh. There are other examples of this. I could have cited several. I just picked this one, the so-called Kuthian legend of Naram-Sin. Whoever you may be, governor, prince, or anyone else, whom the gods shall name to exercise kingship, I have made a foundation box for you. I have written you a stele. In Kutha, in the Emeslam, in the cellar of Nergal, the god, have I left it for you. Behold this stele. Listen to the wording of this stele. This is a document that's expressly being set up for future generations to read. It's explicitly in the cultural frame of reference. Let expert scholars tell you the stele. Most kings couldn't read. You who have read the stele and placed yourself so that you can proceed effectively, you who, the text is difficult, have blessed me, so may a future one bless you. So there's a payoff for the person setting up the stele. You get posterity, you get blessings for posterity, you get a kind of immortality. You can't get physical immortality, but you can write yourself immortal. The other thread I want to pursue takes us really into the heart of the first millennium, into the heart of the palaces and temples of the Neo-Assyrian period. And this is a rather wonderful artistic impression by Layard of the city of Nimrud, from which we have a number of scholarly texts that feed into some of the things that I'm going to talk about now. This is a period in which knowledge and writing was very, very important. Now, it's quite possible that they were similarly important centuries, millennia beyond this, but we can really document it in this period, 7th, 8th century BCE. We have really good data. So I want to go back to the standard Babylonian Gilgamesh introduction. This is the added bit, the first bit. The second bit is not the added bit. He who saw the deep, the foundation of the country, who knew the proper ways, was wise in everything. He everywhere explored the seats of power. He knew the sum of wisdom about everything. He saw the secret and uncovered the hidden. He brought back intelligence. The word is temu in Akkadian, report, message, understanding, from before the flood. He brought back the knowledge from before the flood. Gilgamesh, who scoured the world, ever searching for life, and reached through sheer force, Utnapishtim, the distant, who restored the cult centers destroyed by the deluge, and set in place for the people the rights of the cosmos. Okay? So Gilgamesh is not just associated with writing, Gilgamesh is associated with knowledge. I mentioned earlier that in the Sumerian tale, the death of Gilgamesh, one of the things they tell him to make him feel better is not just, well, you defeated Huwawa, it's you brought back the knowledge from before the flood. It's a great thing he did. To understand how great, we have to talk about fishmen, which is good because it's always good to talk about fishmen. Now, the fishmen are mysterious but understandable, and they relate to native Mesopotamian traditions about the origin of knowledge. And we have these traditions from several sources. We have them from really good early, relative to the later ones that I'm going to talk about, really good sources from about 700 BC. We have a catalogue of texts and authors, and the first entry in the catalogue is that the corpus of magic and the corpus of lamentation, just as a whole, come from the mouth of Ea. This knowledge comes directly from the gods. And in the next entry, some other material comes from a character called Uana. Now, Uana is known from a later author, this is why I said early, it's all relative in my field, called Berosus. And Berosus was a Babylonian-born priest writing 3rd century BC in Greek. Almost everything he wrote is lost, but one of the things he tells us is a story about knowledge. And he says that all the knowledge of civilization was brought by a fish being who swam up the Gulf and stayed with people during the day and imparted to them the knowledge. And while he was there, he didn't eat or drink anything. He went back to the sea at night. And since that time, Berosus says the Babylonians believe, no new knowledge has come. Adapa, or Anis, we know that they're the same character, is the protege, the first protege of the god Ea, the god of magic and wisdom. That's why they're listed in sequence in the catalogue, and there are other things that show that. Adapa is the first sage. The word is apkalu. I'll try not to lapse into it, but I may accidentally. And these sages are viewed by the scholars as their intellectual ancestors. And when the scholars carry out rituals, which is what you're seeing here, on the left you're seeing a scholar with a fish cloak carrying out some kind of purification ritual, and on the right, in the middle here, you see there's a sick person on the bed, and there are 2 fish-cloaked characters, one either side. When the scholars carry out these rituals, they put on these fish cloaks to connect themselves with the origins of knowledge. So the notion of the fishy origin